Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTube, for the 31st and final time this month, and of the whole year. I'm still going to keep making videos after this. It's just that for the Proverbs, this is the final one. So as we begin this final one, let me open us up in prayer. Father, thank you for always keeping us. Thank you for just keeping us always steadfast in what you ask us to do. Many things we just have to have faith in. We just have to trust in your word and trust to go where you're leading us. So just always keep us looking towards you. Always keep us just going on the path that you set before us, because you'll never lead us astray. And I just ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Number 31. The words of King Lemuel, the prophecy which his mother taught him. What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways unto that which destroyeth kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Saying, as a king, as someone in command, you have to be very careful not to let things stray you, not to let things deceive you. And as it says, drink and getting drunk. It's like, if you're at work, you don't want to get drunk because you could do your job incorrectly. But for kings and princes and people, in leadership, they're always on duty. They always have to be ready to bring forth judgment on people. So it's saying, just don't get yourself drunk if you're in a position like that. If you're in a position or in a time in your life where you need to be counted on for something, don't let drinking lead you astray. But give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that are of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. There's a place for everything in life. And even though it's not good to get drunk, especially when you have something you need to do, it's saying, someone who's ready to die, someone who's of a heavy heart, someone who's in misery, you can give them something to drink. Them getting drunk isn't wrong. It's just, depending on your situation, depending on what you need, and depending on what has happened to you, it's not wrong to do something like that just to, like it says, to forget your poverty and just to ease the pain of something. Because again, you go through different times in your life when you just need something to keep going. And it's saying, someone who's ready to die, it's like the whole idea of if you're on your deathbed, smoking a cigarette is not going to kill you. It's like, yes, if you're young and you're healthy, smoking is going to destroy your lungs. But if you're already going to die, having one last drink, having a last smoke, that's not going to do anything to you. Open thy mouth for the dumb, and the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. If someone, needs help, you go out and help them. Go out and help, the poor, the needy, the people who can't speak for themselves, that others are trying to destroy. It's just that try to be a helping hand to others who can't help themselves. And now we get into the final part of the very last proverb, which is for all the singles out there. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. This whole last part here, starting from verse 10 all the way to verse 31, I also find it pretty cool that, Proverbs 31 has 31 verses in it. The entire part from verse 10 to verse 31 is talking about finding a good wife, finding a woman who loves the Lord, and just pretty much almost what to look for in it. These are things that a man can do as well. These are things that just being committed to God is something that these are the traits you should look for. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need for spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Saying, just how important a woman is who seeks after God, just how valuable she is. I heard a guy speak on it recently who said the word virtuous at the beginning, who can find a virtuous woman, actually can be translated in many different ways. I believe it can be translated as, who can find a strong woman, who can find a valiant, I think he said was another way. And I believe he said the term that was originally used in Hebrew is a military term for someone who is strong. So he's saying, who can find a woman who is just so strong, who can find a, almost like not a commander, but who can find just such a valiant, such a brave woman. It's almost like it's using a term that is very honorable term for someone. And, it can be translated in many ways, as, amplified as a capable, intelligent, and virtuous. The ESV says, an excellent wife. Another amplified says an excellent woman, one who is spiritually capable, intelligent, and virtuous. Who's he that can find her? For her value is more precious than jewels, and her worth is far above rubies or pearls. Just saying that there is no comparison on this earth of anything compared to a woman who's seeking after God. It's just saying how precious she is, just how worthy someone like that is, and how rare it is to find a woman like that. And that, the husband who has a wife like that, he won't have to worry. Like, he never has to worry that she's going to be doing anything evil. It's that he can put his trust in her completely. In the same way that we can put our trust in God and not worry for the future. Saying, a husband who has a wife like that, he knows that she is so strong and she's so centered on the Lord that he doesn't need to worry at all. I'm just going to read through this next segment kind of in one whole go here. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hand she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretches forth her hand to the poor. Yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. That whole segment from verse 13 to verse 20, it says repeatedly, she works with her hands, with the fruit of her hands, she strengtheneth her arms. She layeth her hands to the spindle, her hands hold. She stretches forth her hands, she reaches forth her hands. What that appears to be saying is that she is a confident woman. She's not afraid of acting, of doing the Lord's will. I've heard some people mention that, by following biblical rules of a husband and wife, it's demeaning the wife. It's saying, the husband has rule over her and she's doing nothing but herself. She's incapable. But this flips that completely on its head. It's saying that, a virtuous woman, a God-centered woman, a God-fearing woman, a God-fearing wife, she is productive. She is doing stuff on her own. As it says, she considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. It's saying she's considering the field and buys it. It's not that she's, having to wait for another person's decision. She's capable on her own of doing all this stuff. The way the Bible has set up marriage is that the man is in command. The husband is in command over the wife. Yet that is not to say the wife is incapable on her own. God has set different things up where the man is to be the spiritual leader. It's where the man is supposed to follow the laws of God and the wife is supposed to support him in everything he's doing. Yet she is still able to be a woman on her own. It's not saying that she's to not be capable. It's not saying that she's to just be a weakling. Yes, she's to submit to her husband, and she's to submit to the way that what the husband's calling is. I believe the wife is meant to support it. Yet at the same time, it's not saying that a woman can't have a calling. It's not saying that a woman can't do things as well. It's just that a husband and wife need to come together, and they need to support each other in it. If a woman's been given a calling in life, she is to go after it. And if she actually has a Christ-centered husband, if her husband actually is truly centered on the Lord, he will support her in that calling no matter what it is. They both will be willing to support each other, and that's the whole purpose of a marriage. You both lean on each other when you need help. You both support each other. The way God has seemed to set it up, the husband has authority. Yet, if the husband is truly following God, he will not abuse his authority. If you truly find a God-fearing man, he will know that it is not his place to abuse his authority over the woman. But God does say for the wife to submit to their husband. And because, while in Genesis it said the woman was made for the man, while the woman is made to support the man and everything he does, the man is to give himself and give his life to his wife. As it says in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 3, it says, "Let the husband render unto his wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife has not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also the husband has not power of his own body, but the wife." Like I think I already said, God's set up where the husband is the spiritual ruler of the household. But is saying that he doesn't have command over himself, the wife does. And the wife doesn't have command over herself, the husband does. When you come together in the bounds of marriage, you pretty much are giving yourself up for the other person. Then in giving yourself up to each other, God has then put the responsibility of leading the household on the husband, and the responsibility of the wife to support the husband in leading that household. And then in Ephesians 5, verse 25, it says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church, and gave himself up for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man has ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, and his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife sees that she reveres her husband. In the way that God gave his life and sacrificed himself for the church or for us. He gave up his life to protect us, to give us what we need. While we're supposed to submit to God's will, God cares about us in life. He hasn't just, he doesn't say, do this, and he doesn't care what happens to us. God has given his life so that we might have eternal life. A husband is supposed to give his life completely to his wife. In the same way, while God is command over us, while we submit ourselves to God, just as a wife submits herself to her husband, God, because he is a righteous and just God, does not abuse his power. But he still does command that we revere him as God. That same way is that a husband is not to abuse his power over his wife, yet he is still to have authority over her. And with that, if a man does abuse his power over his wife, it does seem to say that the wife should still be submissive to her husband, because that's how God has set it up. Yet that man will be punished for it. That man will be judged by God for what he's done. So it's a difficult balance to get in. It's a difficult thing for people to understand, but God has reasons for the way he set everything up in life. And marriage is one of those things that if you go outside of his rules, if you go outside of the plan God has for marriage, that's why the divorce rate is so high, because people do not follow the laws of God. People don't follow the structure of the actual purpose of a marriage. And when you're using something God's created without going to the manual he made for it, if you try to put together something and you don't read the instruction booklet, it's not going to come out correctly. And in that same way with marriage, if you don't go to God's instructions for it, if you don't go to the Lord to know how a marriage is supposed to happen, how a husband and wife are supposed to conduct themselves to each other, it's going to fall apart and it's going to end in divorce. All right, now I'll finally get back to the proverb. She is not afraid of the snow, for her household, for all of her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Purple was a very rare color to have back then. It was a very expensive color. It was the color of royalty before. Because I believe it's something where the color purple they had to get from snails. Somehow there was like an extract they got from snails, and the amount you need to dye a single garment purple, you need to have harvested thousands of these things. But it's just that purple was a very rare color and a color of royalty back then. But it's saying she's so good in what she's doing. She's such an amazing person that she's been able to get the color purple because of how good she's been in life, how virtuous she's been. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. Verse 23 there, that's a very important one. It's saying that, she's a good wife, but her husband is good as well. He's among the elders. He is a man of reverence. He's a man of respect in the land. It's not that, she's this way and her husband is just this weak little pitiful guy. It's, again, the idea of a godly husband is a man who's focused on God, who's focused on being the best he can be for his wife, and giving himself entirely for her. Even though this is mainly focused on the wife, that one little verse there is saying, how the husband is strong as well. Her husband is strong because of what she's doing for him. It's like, a man on his own can only do so much. With the amazingly beautiful support of a wife, he's known, as an elder among the land. He's known with such great reverence. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Strength and honor is how she's clothed herself. She isn't wearing, overly seductive or overly sexual dresses trying to grab the attention of any man. It's not saying, you can't dress up nice, you can't dress beautifully, but I think there is a line which when you're crossing, which is when you are just doing it to be seductive to somebody. When a woman goes from dressing beautifully to dressing, and you can tell she's just doing it to be sexual. There is no definite line. You can't say, a 1-inch neckline is fine, but a 2-inch is not fine, a 3-inch is terrible. Like, you can't do measurements like that. You can't put a broad rule over stuff. Yet, again, like everything, when you're focused on the Lord, when you're focused on God, you'll know when stuff is going too far. You'll know within your own heart when you've gone too far. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is the law of kindness. Saying she's a wise person, she's a kind person. It's just these are all the attributes of someone who's focused on the Lord. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Saying, she's not a sluggard, she's not a sloth, she's being productive with her time. She's not just, mindlessly wasting time doing things. She's being productive. And it's not that you want to be a workaholic. That's, you have to realize that work alone isn't enough. But it's saying, again, when you When you love the Lord, you'll be willing to follow his laws. The law won't save you, but in loving God, you will want to follow his law. Works won't save you, but in being a virtuous person, you will want to do good works. The stuff will just flow out of you naturally. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Saying, people realize how good she is. Her children call her blessed. Her husband gives her praise constantly. It's just saying, this is what happens when you have your family aligned towards the Lord, just how beautiful it can be. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excels them all. Many people can do good in the sight of the Lord. It says many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excels them all. A woman who is truly focused on God, who her entire life is focused on pleasing the Lord at pretty much you'd say any cost. It's saying, that excels so many people. That it goes beyond something being good. The way I heard it is that, good is the enemy of great. Where just because many people are good in life, because many women are, she's a good woman, you can go beyond that and you can become an amazing person, which is, again, when you're following the laws of God, it's just saying, you're excelling so many people in this world. And, a woman who's focused on God truly becomes one of a kind. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Well, God has made beauty, and God has made many women very beautiful. It's saying that alone is vain. That alone is not going to get you a good wife. If you're looking for a wife and you're only looking at her appearance, that isn't going to get you one. Yes, her appearance will attract you to her, but it will be her works, and it will be her attitude and her kindness, just her spirit, pretty much, that will actually be what guides you to her. That will actually be what you realize that this is a woman who's one of a kind. This is a woman who's far above the price of rubies, there is no equal unto her. Give her the fruits of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. When you are truly following God, what you're doing in life will speak for itself. You won't have to tell people that you're being righteous. You won't have to tell people that, oh yeah, I'm following the Lord. Your works, your actions will speak for themselves. Some people are called to preach God in ministry, let's just say. Some people are called to preach God, though, through their life, through their works, through their good deeds. You can show God through your willingness to do the right thing in every situation. Even if she's not, a preacher, a pastor, where people can't openly see, she's preaching the word of God. They will be able to tell in her life that she is focused on Christ simply because of how amazing of a person she is. And that ends the Proverbs. I think it's very fitting that the very final proverb ends on talking about a good wife. Because what that seems to tell me is that among all the wisdom of the world, among everything you can possibly gain in the world, having a God-centered wife, having a wife who is truly seeking after the Lord, it is a gift that nothing else can ever measure up to. I think it's just showing, the importance God has put on a woman. Is that, she's pretty much his final creation. God created everything in the world, and then he created man. But then after man, it was almost like I guess you could almost say God almost thought to himself, I can still make something better. And that's when he created a woman. And it's just that the Proverbs go through talking about wisdom, talking about, seeking stuff, and how, great wisdom will end up getting you riches in life. It will end up getting you things that are beyond, just if you seek at the riches, you're going to lose them. But if you seek at the wisdom, you're going to end up getting riches out of it. Yet, a wife is something that you can't get through anything you do in life. No amount of force, no amount of power, no amount of anything can find you a wife. The only way you can come to have a godly wife is if God gives her to you. The only way you can find a spouse is if God decides to give one to you. There's no way you can force it along. There's no amount of wisdom you can gain to discover one, I guess you'd say. It's something that purely is favor from the Lord, as it said in the earlier proverb. And I find it very cool that the Proverbs end on that, on the importance of a lady who fears the Lord. So with that, I'm going to leave you, and Lord willingly, I will not see you tomorrow because I'm probably going to take a bit of a break, and I'll probably go back to my one video a week schedule. I'll see exactly what I'm going to do, but thanks again for surviving through these whole 31 days of Proverbs, and I hope you got something out of all this. And if anything, I found through reading these Proverbs again, by trying to teach them and by trying to speak them, I learned more than when I was just reading through them on my own. The phrase that, if you want to learn something, teach it to somebody else. I really saw that come true with the Proverbs of I learned them a whole lot better by trying to speak them out loud and by trying to, I guess you'd say, teach them to you. So, again, before I keep rambling, Lord willingly, I will see you all later.